Welcome back to the Shoot Your Shot Sports Fantasy Football Lifeline Show. This is Richie Chicago, and I'm joined by our expert, Jay Ballar. As always, we're here to help
you
suck
less.
Awesome. And today's show is always sponsored by Thrive Fantasy, the daily fantasy sports app for player props. This can be found on the Google Play and Apple App Store. So use promo code Lifeline when you sign up today, and they will match you up to $50 on your first deposit with a minimum $20. So keep an eye out Thursday afternoon for our Thursday night football lineup locks.
I absolutely love this app. It's been a lot of fun. It's a great combination of your daily fantasy, your traditional props. All I'm looking for is a reason to watch these primetime games. This gives a great combination here up until the very end. Breeze, his three garbage completions at I think it was a minute left. Doubled my money in that last 1 minute. Can't complain. We got a lot of great games on the docket for primetime this week, so I'll be putting out a lineup every 3 hours before kickoff each primetime game. So keep an eye out for that, guys.
Awesome. And what's the promo code again? It's Lifeline, and make sure it's up to $50 they match you. So make sure you do it. So let's get into it today. Let's dive right in. So that was a wild weekend last week. Tons of injuries. Saquon Barkley out. Christian McCaffrey out. What should I be doing if I drafted all these guys, like, hypothetically? But it's just crazy, man. Like,
I've never seen a weekend where so many people went down, legitimate fantasy contributors in the same weekend. Again, we got Saquon Barkley out for the rest of the season with a torn ACL. We got Christian McCaffrey dealing with a high ankle sprain, easily 4 weeks, possibly 6 weeks. He's their franchise player. They're not going to rush him back. Most people were taking these guys 1 and 2 in their drafts. They were all summer their consensus number 1, number 2. The good news is, guys, we got 11 more weeks of fantasy football to play. We're here to help you. There's still a chance to go out and win your league, even if your number 1 pick goes down. Thomas went down last week. Godwin went down last week. These guys go down this week. We're in week 2. This is going to happen week in, week out. We're going to continue to see these top guys go down. Other guys are going to step up. In the meantime, I definitely want to give you guys some tips and pointers. Again, we got, if you have your 1, 2, 3, potentially 4 in your waiver wire, you're going to get a solid option at running back. But if you're sitting back, you took a guy high on the waiver wire last week, you're sitting back, in the back half, it's going to take a little bit more work to really fill that void of an RB1. The Christian McCaffrey, the 25 points a game. Barkley always has that upside to go 25 points a game. How you do that is going to be working the lineup you currently have. First thing you do, you're not going to freak out. It's week 2. Everybody's dealing with injuries. Clearly this season we're gonna see it continue to happen. Guys we thought that would be going off by now aren't. Stay patient. Don't give up on the season just yet, and try out a couple of these things. Like I think there's some really good options here that might actually make your team better in the long run. First off, hit the trade block. Take your best couple of players, put them out there. Honestly, values in the eye of the beholder. I might like a player way more than you like a player. You're never going to know that if you just start sending out these crazy trades, seeing if anybody accepts just anything. Put them out there, wait a couple days, see what comes back. Somebody's favorite player could be, Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry had an off week last week. You put him out there. Hey, I want to try to get back. I'm, a middle tier running back, decent wide receiver for the depth. Somebody might bite on that. You just never know. Once you've done that, I honestly recommend to start looking at your top wide receiver, your top running back, your tight end, and your quarterback at this point. Because if you have a top running back, it's potential you could get a little bit of depth on a RB2 and a wide receiver. If you have a top tier wide receiver, you got DeAndre Hopkins, Devontae Adams dealing with an injury. Looks like he probably could have come back last week, so I'm still going to keep him in that that top tier. Those guys are going to be worth at least an RB2 and a wide receiver too. So again, you're trying to fill your lineup week in, week out with solid players that are going to get you to that 115, 120 mark. It might not be the guy you thought, but you're going to be able to replace him with a couple of guys. And as we're seeing, depth is going to be really important this year. people with Travis Kelce, Waller, and Johnny Smith. We got Noah Fant going off. If you got somebody like Kelce, somebody might want to upgrade their tight end. They might give you an RB1, might give you a wide receiver one. Don't be afraid to trade off Kelce, because there's so many decent tight ends that you can pick up right now. Mo Alley Cox in Indianapolis. Noah Fant still available. Dalton Schultz caught 8 passes with Dak Prescott. Again, the replacement of a tight end right now is going to be a whole heck of a lot easier than replacing that RB1 on the waiver wire. The biggest one that I think people might get a little mad at me at is, don't be afraid to trade away your Lamar Jackson, your Pat Mahomes, your Dak Prescott, your Russell Wilson. Yes, those guys are absolutely killing it this year. Pat Mahomes not included. I'll come back to him at the end here with some of my final notes. But if you got a guy like Russell Wilson who's leading the league in scoring, yes, hopefully you have a solid backup quarterback. You could potentially get one of the best running backs, one of the best receivers, or a great running back and a good receiver for the price of him. People like Gardner Minshew, Tannehill, and Joe Burrow are still sitting out there on the waiver wire. The replacement, again, points over replacement. You're going to be able to replace most of Russell Wilson's points. Again, he's not going to keep putting up 40-point weeks. If he does, hey, you can come back and get me. But you got to get smart here, knowing that it's going to be a heck of a lot easier to replace quarterback points with some of these pretty solid, back end quarterbacks than it is to replace Christian McCaffrey's 26 to 30 points a week. You're going to have to think a little differently and outside the box. Outside of that, hey, we got a couple notable injuries. So it's Raheem Mostert. He's looking like he's going to miss a couple weeks. Cortland Sutton, he's down for the rest of the season. I think that really boosts the Jerry Jeudy stock, the Noah Fant stock. Cam Akers, hey, we got a situation where 2 weeks we have 2 running backs leading the way for the Rams out there in Los Angeles, not St. Louis, as I said last week. But it's going to get murky. Again, Darrell Henderson, he's a great ad this week. We'll go into that here in a minute. But from that standpoint, I think what I want people to get out of this, you got to start looking at your lineup a little differently. If you got to be willing to, to break away from that guy you might have drafted in the first or second round, to give yourself the depth to survive. If you don't have an early waiver wire pick this week to get somebody like Mike Davis to cover up for Christian McCaffrey in the short term, it's going to hurt you in the long term. You're going to lose games. So that's where I stand. Take with it as you wish. But right now, if I have Barkley, if I have McCaffrey, I'm playing GM right now, trying to get any kind of value I can out of my top players and create a team that I can put on the field every day with depth. Might not have that home run hitter every week, but hey, I'm going to compete week in, week out. Super
interesting. Awesome. So potentially one of the most important waiver runs of the year. Who's going to save my season?
Yeah, you usually don't see that week 2. This is usually something that comes in week 10, 11. Somebody picks up somebody like David Johnson a few years back. Adrian Peterson was out in Arizona. He went down, and David Johnson comes in and wins everybody's leagues. You usually see these waiver wire runs that are super important back into the year. Here we are, week 2, ton of injuries. You gotta have a startable running back. So I'm going really heavy on the running backs this week on the waiver wire. Important to note, I think it's really best if you go with high upside and not just filling a hole, not just filling a niche. Unless you're really desperate. If you know that all you need to do is take Mike Davis, plug him in for Christian McCaffrey for the next 4 to 6 weeks, you're going to be fine. But if you're shooting for the fences with somebody like Devontae Freeman, who just signed with the Giants, hey, you're not going to want to jump out at him right away. So leading off, I'm going with James Robinson. Again, he is owned in quite a bit of leagues. He's the top guy in Jacksonville. 16 carries, 100 yards, and a touchdown. Understand why they let Fournette walk. He's the guy I'm going after, number 1. Again, I've seen him between 40 and 50% available in all the major leagues across the internet. If you can't get him, the number 1, and I think it's been a consistent number 1, is Mike Davis. He, in 1 quarter, had 8 catches for 74 yards in McCaffrey's absence. Clearly, the Carolina Panthers are going to be playing from behind. Bridgewater loves to dump it off to his running back. He just makes sense in that spot. If you're not able to get Mike Davis, I'm going here on upside, Darrell Henderson. That's a guy that could be there at the end of the season to help you win your league. Yes, he's going to share carries with Malcolm Brown. Yes, he's going to share carries with Cam Akers when he's back. It looks like it's going to be a definite timeshare. We're probably going to be talking about the Rams backfield every single week. Who should I start? Who should I sit? But if you can stash Darrell Henderson, I'm stashing him. If you need him to start, he's going to be a viable flex option. Devontae Freeman, he's back in the league. He signed with the Giants today. I think he fits the mold down the line of someone that's going to be the most similar to Saquon Barkley. I don't like Wayne Gallman. Deion Lewis is kind of a change of pace back. Devontae Freeman is going to take him a couple weeks. So if you have to win the next week, 2 weeks, I don't think he's going to get you there. But he's someone that is going to put up viable fantasy points, week 6 and on. And hey, he's only a few years removed from being a stud. He's going to get the carries as long as he stays healthy. He's going to be a viable option at RB2, potentially flex. From there, we got the 49ers. Again, probably the team that was hit the most by the injury bug, complaining about the field out there at MetLife. Raheem Mostert goes down. It looks like it's a mild MCL sprain, probably a couple weeks. They're going to need him to get back. Again, Kittle's still out. Garoppolo's out. They're going to need all the weapons they can get there. Tevin Coleman, he's a guy, went down as well. Haven't got a full report. Looks like it could be a little bit more serious than Mostert. So right now, Jet McKinnon, I don't know if you guys remember him. He stepped in up in Minnesota a few years back. Him and Matt Asiata had a couple solid weeks when Adrian Peterson couldn't run the ball. So he looked solid. Again, he's a guy that's going to, if you need him to fill in for a few weeks, he's going to be okay. If you need him to carry your team, and you want him to be there by week 15, week 16, he's not your guy. Again, everybody's situation is a little different. We don't want to be passing up guys if, hey, I don't need him right now. He's somebody on your, if you put him on your bench, you might need him down the line. I'm not sure I'm passing on him if he gets to me. I think running backs are the most important. We're always going to have a ton of receivers. There's always going to be a bunch of guys going out there and catching the ball. Running backs is going to be a lot tougher. From the receiving standpoint, it's really, again, who you like. Corey Davis, V.J. Brown continues to stay out. He's the number one there in Tennessee. They've been throwing the ball. Russell Gage, he's actually tied for the team lead in targets at 21. I wouldn't have expected that coming in 2 weeks, 2 weeks into the season. However, Julio Jones pretty hobbled up this last week. Russell Gage could see himself find himself a place in that lineup. I take back what I said last week where, hey, I'm not taking Russell Gage because he's the fourth pass catcher. The Falcons are going to be playing from behind all year, it looks like. They're going to have 500 yards passing every week. They're all going to get theirs. With Paris Campbell going down in Indy, Michael Pittman Jr., guy I liked in the preseason, I think he could be a very starting viable option down the line, maybe as soon as this week. T.Y. Hilton is still there in Indianapolis. I don't necessarily trust Phillip Rivers right now. He's not playing the best quarterback, but Michael Pittman's a big target, and I think someone that will really benefit the most from Paris Campbell going down for the year this week. And then another guy, we'll talk about him a little later, Laviska Shenault Jr., the rookie down in Jacksonville. Minshew Mania is full force. They like the guy. They love the guy. They have him airing it out. Talks today of, hey, he's going to be our franchise quarterback. So they wouldn't have went out and drafted a wide receiver with, I think it was their 42nd pick in the draft this year, if they felt that they could get it done with DJ Chark and Keelan Cole. Laviska, he's out there. He's going to get the catches. Again, somebody that's going to be probably stashed on the bench. Anybody gets injured as his role grows within that team, could become a starting option there down the line. A handful of streamable defenses. If you didn't pick up Tampa Bay last week, they're probably going to be owned most of the season. Highly recommend grabbing those guys. And aside from that, I think the Chargers could possibly be available, and the Cardinals. Cardinals look pretty decent this last week. Schedule's really easy the next 3 weeks. You might be able to stream them back to back. Again, the 49ers defense isn't what we thought it was going to be. Right now, the only defense is playing at a really high pace has really been the Steelers and the Buccaneers. So if I can get the Buccaneers, I'm going after them. I was able to get them last week, a week early. Had a good week. I think they're somebody that went from a streamer to a possible starter every week for me.
Nice. So it was a wild weekend, as we've been talking about. So Leonard Fournette had a big weekend. What's your take on that? And Derrick Henry hit a slow day. I was freaking out, honestly, because I know it's early in the season. He likes to go off later on in the season usually, but I was like, wow, he's like my RB2 right now. This is not good.
Derek is a second half guy historically.
Yeah.
The good thing about Derek is he still saw 25 carries. So
Yeah.
I think he's leading the league in carries at this point. I think it was 34 week 1, 25 week 2. He's going to get his touches. He's a durable back. I know he'll be fine. There'll be more goal line opportunities there. With Tannehill throwing the ball, it's going to open up Derrick Henry to continue on. Again, I'd rather have Derrick Henry right now than Christian McCaffrey, than Saquon Barkley. We got to take what we can get, Richie. I know he didn't give us the week we wanted, but I'm starting him every week. He's gonna have those weeks where we don't love it because he doesn't punch the ball in the end zone. However, let's hope he's still there by the time playoffs roll around because his back end of the schedule looks awesome, and I really want to see him. I have him as well. I need a fantasy championship out of Derrick Henry this year. As for Fournette, I do think it's going to be a two-man backfield, but Ronald Jones fumbled. Gave Fournette an opportunity. He ran with it, and boy, did he run with it. 12 carries, 100 yards. I think I saw a stat where he only did that once or twice his entire career with the Jags. Put up 2 touchdowns. Clearly, they wanted him there. He's probably the better back of the two. I think he moves into flex RB2 start territory. If you got lucky and he was on your bench with Barkley or McCaffrey, I think you're smiling right now like, man, I got pretty lucky. Fournette moves into a start for me. That he's going to continue to see more reps as he learns the offense. But I don't see why he can't put an extremely relevant fantasy season together. I didn't know he'd do it quite this early, but dang, he looked good. He looked quick, fast, hit the hole right. They got a game plan for him. He's somebody. Hey, I'm not necessarily sure I'm starting Ronald Jones until I see him bounce back. But Fournette, I'm not afraid to sit in my lineup because I think he's going to get the goal line touches now.
Nice. So we had some awful picks last week, Gallup and Anthony Miller. So let's talk about that real quick.
Oh man, Anthony Miller. What are they doing? I should have known. I draft and I get high on one of Matt Nagy's offensive weapons. Last year I was super high on David Montgomery. Again, we finally saw what David Montgomery could become last week. He had an awesome game. I thought that would be Anthony Miller's game. I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense. Hey, sometimes fantasy football doesn't make sense. I'm not dropping him yet. I still think he's a viable bench option. Again, you're not going to play a guy after he puts up a goose egg. Luckily, I didn't play him this week. Have seen him, him dropping quite a bit in a lot of these, the numbers that I'm pulling up. I'd stash him if you can. If you have to drop him for running back, I understand. Michael Gallup, he came up big when it mattered. I think Gallup's going to be a solid guy. 2 weeks in a row again. Monday night he got caught with they called the offensive pass interference when he made that big play. They went right back to him. Biggest play of the game. That catch on the sideline. If we'll find out if he's going to be more like a Will Fuller, where he's a big play type of guy. But Dak's going to have to keep tossing the ball because he's got a lot of trust there. I still think that the three horses there in Dallas, CeeDee Lamb, Gallup, and Cooper, they're going to have multiple. They're all going to have 100-yard games. The touchdowns are going to be spread out. That defense, can't stop anything as it seems. So Dak's going to be throwing the ball around the yard all day long. I still like Gallup. Maybe not starting him this week until I see some bounce back. But hey, from here on out, I'll let you take this week's picks because clearly that was awful picks. Sorry guys, anybody rolled with those two, absolutely awful.
Honestly, I like Jerry Jeudy at the moment because with the whole injury with Courtland Sutton, he's on the waiver wire right now, at least in one of my leagues. So definitely going to pick him up if I need a good wide receiver at the moment. But yeah.
I like Noah Fant as well. The ability, I think Noah is going to become the big target. Jeff Driscoll stepped in for Drew Lock when he was out. Noah Fant became his number one target. Jeudy runs pristine routes. And, I mean, hey, I'm not afraid to start him. I think he's the number one wide receiver there, clearly. I think Fant, I'm starting him and as tight end. I 2 weeks, 2 touchdowns, he's 7-8 targets. He's in that tight end 1/2 range right now. There's a lot of good tight ends though. So it's, hey, if you can play him, I'll come back to it here in a second, but I'm almost flexing somebody like Noah Fant or Johnny Smith now. If I need somebody, don't be afraid to flex those guys. If you got a Hayden Hurst and a Noah Fant, I'm putting both those guys in my lineup. They've had 2 great weeks. They're seeing the targets. Don't be afraid to flex a tight end this week with all these injuries. If they're the ones playing the best, hey, they're going to see the targets. So that's something else. I know. If you need to flex a tight end, don't be afraid to.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I also like what's his face? James Robinson too. Like he's on my waiver wire, so I'm like gotta pick him up. Stat. That's about it. So
yeah, he's number one. He's number one there clearly, and that offense is a lot better than I was expecting. So James Robinson again. That's why he's my number one waiver wire pickup this week. As you see, he's available in your league. So if he's out there, snag him up. Snag him up if you can, man.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. So anything else you want to leave us with?
I think it's time to trade Pat Mahomes. That's my hot take today. Since the beginning of last season, which I think is like 16 games. Add these 2 games, he missed some time last year. He's averaging 22.4 points a game, ranking him about 7th in that same territory as Stafford and Breeze and Matt Ryan. I understand Pat Mahomes is probably the best football player we might see in our lifetime. Guy's an MVP. Guy's a Super Bowl champion. He's going to go out there. It's going to be tough to beat he's going to be tough to beat week in, week out. However, I think somebody in your league probably values him higher because of that than his actual fantasy value is worth. So if you've been hit with an injury, do not be afraid to trade Patrick Mahomes right now. Likelihood you can get somebody, like I said, Minshew, Tannehill, Burrow to fill in. Burrow's averaging 20 points a game right now. It's 2 points south, 2 points south of Pat Mahomes. Again, I'd give it a shot. Mahomes not someone I'm wanting on my roster right now. I'd be trying to. Again, I'm not giving him up for anything, but I guarantee someone in your league is going to see a trade request with Pat Mahomes in it, and his eyes are going to light up, and he's not going to go back and look at the game splits from the last 16 weeks, showing that hey, he's been an average quarterback from a fantasy standpoint. He's been an amazing quarterback from an actual real football standpoint. So, love the guy from a real football, fantasy football. Hey, he might need to you might need to pump the brakes on him a little bit. And then I think the biggest thing is, guys, fantasy football is fun. A lot of people I've talked to have lost Christian McCaffrey, have lost Saquon Barkley. Don't give up. Suck it up. Do some research, watch our show, and give yourself an opportunity to put yourself into the playoffs. You never know what happens come playoff time. Injuries pop up again. You're in a situation where you were able to stay alive. McCaffrey comes back, he wins you a championship. That's a big thing. Hey, don't quit. Don't stop setting your lineup. Don't stop putting your waiver claims. It's only week 2. Give yourself a shot to bounce back, and you'll be glad you did, because it's a lot more fun when you actually have to do some work in fantasy football, and it's not handed to you on a good draft. So that's where I want to leave it. Leave it with everybody. Trade Pat Mahomes if you can, and don't give up. We got a lot of season ahead of us.
Yeah, it's only week 2, guys. So I'd say probably week 5 or 6 start panicking, but it's only week 2, guys. It's only week 2.
Absolutely.